right? And that, to us, that's kind of this idea of animals, that like, man, we do some stupid stuff, we fart, we burp, and we think it's funny, while they fart and burp and they think it's gross. But that's just kind of who we are. We're these physical beings that we just do stupid stuff, we laugh at stupid things, and then we look to them for affirmation, and all we get is like, oh my gosh, like, gross, you know, you're like, what, that was kind of funny? Like, no.
So, did you guys ever play the game, the Call of Duty? Did you guys ever play that? Was that something anybody? So, speaking of stupid things guys do, me and Chris, for some reason, every time we hear the word duty, we giggle a little, because it reminds us of poop. We're 28, and we giggle at the word duty. But for some reason, like, every time Chris goes to the bathroom, he always tweets, and he just hashtags it the Call of Duty. Get it?
Answer the Call of Duty.
Answer the Call of Duty, like that. Anyway, stupid things we giggle at because we're dudes. Girls don't giggle at that.
Right, that's just how it goes. And so what we need to do to understand where we're going is to understand who we are. As men, we're physical beings. We get into this physical world, and we experience things physically rather than women. It seems more emotionally, right? And in that, that's important to know because, again, in starting relationships, physicality is a huge temptation, right? Physicality is a huge temptation for men, for where we're at. And as we talk about this idea of chastity and purity and same-sex marriage and all that kind of stuff, we got to understand, again, who we are to understand what we're made for. And we're made to save sex for marriage, because that's how it's created. And so with this, I just bring up like a personal example. In high school, I think I had just like a girlfriend freshman year, then I didn't date anybody sophomore, junior year, then I started dating this girl senior year, right? And it was one of those things where I had all the intention in my heart and who I was to do all that I can to be pure, to live chaste, right? Because my parents brought me up that way, and I experienced different things in church and school that kind of called me to that. I went to St. Thomas Aquinas, and we had like that kind of stuff that just really encouraged it. And was that bad that it was Aquinas? There was some kind of comment there. I saw it. I don't know what it was, but you know, that's just where I went. That's not my fault. Anyway, the reason why I bring it up is because, again, that temptation was always there. Even though I had all the intent and the idea to live a pure life, to live a chaste life, that temptation was always there. Even to the point where, like, I had to have a discussion with the girl I was dating, right? And I decided, as we had this discussion, okay, how far we're going to go, all that kind of stuff, we decided to set a boundary, a rule that kind of guided us into this idea of trying to live out chastity and purity. And our rule was, I don't necessarily agree with it. I don't think it's like the bar is high enough. I think we're just kind of lowering it so we can at least continue to have fun, but still feel like we're living chastely and purely. And our rule was just like nothing below the belt, right? And the reason why I bring that up is because even though that was the way that I tried to live out chastity and purity, it was still a huge temptation. It was still huge and difficult to try to not get into that idea of sex and just everything that comes before it, right? And even to the point where the girl I was dating, she didn't necessarily feel the same way, right? She didn't necessarily feel as strongly as I did. In fact, several times, she would try and she would talk about it, she would ask, and she would, like, just, in a sense, do what she can to say and converse to me, communicate to me that she didn't think it was a big deal to have sex before marriage. And that if we truly love each other, we truly care for each other, why not, right? And I bring this up because, again, as men, where we're at, it's very hard for our heart to say no. It's very hard for our heart to say no. It's not given to that stuff. And thankfully, by the grace of God and by other strengths that were not of my own, we never did have sex. But I just know, like, where you guys are at here in high school, that temptation is huge, and it's hard, and it's difficult, and it is heavy, and it's something that I believe every single one of you guys can face, and every single one of you guys can conquer. But let's not deny the fact that it's hard, right? Let's not deny the fact that it's difficult.
So I had the exact opposite high school experience as Chris. I went to a big old public high school, and, like, I grew up going to I had a loogie stuck in my throat.
And when you just coming back up?
Yeah. But I went to a big old public high school in Kansas City, and I went to church. I grew up going to church, went to youth group on Sundays and all that stuff. But we never really talked about sex, never really talked about any of this sort of stuff. And so when I went to high school, I had no boundaries. Chastity, I honest to God didn't know what it was until later in college. I didn't know abstinence was like a thing kids actually did. And so when I went into high school, I never said I never said, I'm going to be chaste until I'm married. I'm waiting for my future bride. No, what I did is I dated relentlessly, is the only way I know how to say it. And thank God, like when I was in high school, I didn't fall too crazily. But I never treated the girls I was with respect. Never once did the conversation Chris had with his girlfriends, that was never a conversation I had with any of my girlfriends. Because I didn't know it needed to be a conversation. I don't want to go into too much detail. That you guys are very, very blessed to at least hear some of this stuff. And your religion teachers, like, hopefully you guys talk about theology of the body and all that sort of stuff. And there's just if you don't buy into it early, you make mistakes like I did. And when you get to college, then your morals go lower and lower and lower, and then you make a lot more mistakes like I did.
So we just wanted to say that too, as we kind of start off and get into this idea of chastity and purity, is that, again, we recognize and we realize that it is difficult, that it's hard, that it's a struggle, that it's a temptation, that is much bigger and harder, and like, it's very difficult to face, right? We don't want to come up here and just say to you guys, like, you guys should be chaste and pure, it's easy. Come on, like, why aren't you guys doing that? Because it's not. It's not easy. And it's something you face every single day. It's something you face every point of your life, whether you're in high school, whether you're in junior high, whether you're in college, whether it's you're 40 or whatever it is. There's a priest, or there's a saint who kind of had a struggle with lust and all that kind of stuff and purity. And he asked, like, a father at one point, like, asked him, like, when do you think, like, I will be able to, like, conquer this, right? When do you think I will be able to get over this sin of lust and impurity? And the priest just kind of offered back to him, like, when you're 6 feet under. And what he meant by that is, like, when you're dead. Like, you're going to be facing this your whole life. You're going to be struggling with this your whole life. But just keep at it, right? So we bring that up because, again, we got to know it's not easy. It's not easy, but it's worth it.
And how to have a relationship and ultimately happy marriage. So let's take a look at what I like to call those happiness skills. First is temperance. Okay? And temperance, according to these atheist psychologists, is the ability to intelligently direct your appetites, not suppress them. Okay? And when I say appetites, what I mean is our appetites for food, money, sex, and power. In high school, money you could probably translate into like the latest thing everybody else is getting. Power is actually probably popularity in high school. Okay? And then food, that's self-explanatory, and so sex. So, temperance, though, it's the intelligent direction of those appetites. So we drive them, and we say when we are going to, like, indulge those impulses that we have towards basically pleasurable activities. They aren't driving and dictating what we're doing. Okay, that's temperance. Courage, though, is basically the ability to do something difficult for a higher or long-term or bigger goal. So in general, like if you're dealing with the appetites, what I'm talking about is I am not going to go gorge myself on Taco Bell after school because I have track practice and I don't want to throw up all over my coach. Okay? Even if I'm hungry. Okay, you get the example. But temperance and courage together, when you apply them to how we deal with the appetites within ourselves, make up something that the positive psychologists call grit and self-regulation. And I don't know if you know, it's kind of like that John Wayne grit. I'm in control of everything. And self-regulation is kind of self-explanatory, okay? But we need that in order to set ourselves up for the rest of these happiness skills. So if you have that in place and you're not being driven by your appetites, you're driving them, this leads to wisdom, which is what positive psychologists call the ability to see reality as reality in an unbiased way. And I like to explain this by basically showing the opposite of that. And that is, if you have your appetite driving you, the positive or atheist psychologists call this being on the hedonic treadmill. And the hedonic treadmill is basically the pleasure-seeking treadmill. So if you think about being on a treadmill, I know you guys have all been on a treadmill, you're going along and it's driving you, okay? You're not driving it. When you're on a treadmill and it's cranked up really high and you're going after that next pleasure, it's very hard to look around and see reality as reality. That you can't do it. You have to focus on being on the treadmill. Okay? So things that I like to point out that are very obvious that a lot of people see daily are some of the reality TV shows that demonstrate people being on the hedonic treadmill. And that is, how many of you guys have seen The Biggest Loser on television? Everybody's seen it or at least heard of it? Okay. Those are people who are on the hedonic treadmill or the appetite-driven treadmill with regards to food. And it really wrecks, in some respects, their life. How many of you guys have seen Hoarders? Hoarders on television. Oh my gosh, those people are crazy, right? Well, they're on the hedonic treadmill with regards to accumulating crap. But that's an appetite for things or money that's driving them. And you can see in those people's lives that they don't have an objective view of reality. Does everybody see that? Yes? Okay, in addition to that, how many of you guys heard all the stories about Tiger Woods? Okay? That guy pummeled his life. He pummeled his personal life, he pummeled his career. Why? What did he have out of control? His appetite for what? Sex. Okay? Obviously, he didn't have clear vision of reality of what he was doing. And in addition to that, General Petraeus is another example recently of that. And I mean, it goes on and on. We see this all the time. Okay, so that's wisdom and knowledge. Once you have those three things in place, though, you got the appetites under control, you got the courage to do things that are hard, and go after big goals, and you can see reality as reality, you have a sense of justice. You can objectively look at your girlfriend or your parents and say, this is what they owe me, this is what I owe them. And by the way, guys, when you're evaluating women, you really want a woman to have a sense of justice, because if she doesn't, she's high maintenance. Right? Because she can objectively see, this is what he owes me. And then she bases like all those hurt feelings and just the histrionics that some women go through on the fact that she's on an objective view of reality. Which, I mean, you guys could probably tell her that and she'll like freak out about it. Anyway, guys, a sense of justice. We want a sense of justice about us. Next is, though, we all know we need love. And the positive psychologists found this, and it's kind of like a duh. But in some respects, you have to have all those qualities and characteristics in order to love. You know, we have to have a sense of justice before we can love. Next is, though, a sense of transcendence. And this is having a higher purpose, higher being, higher power, and being passionate about that purpose. You can't be happy, even today, without having some kind of sense of purpose in your life. So that's kind of your goal during these years, is to find your purpose, find your mission. And oh, by the way, I say that these atheist psychologists are highly intellectually honest. Well, and when they discovered this whole idea that you can't be happy without transcendence, they decided that, well, not believing in God is counterproductive, so we think there is a God now, but we just can't define it. So now they're agnostics. Okay. Next is, though, finally, if you lay all the groundwork with all of these qualities and characteristics, it leads to an optimistic view of life. Why? Because when stuff hits you in the face during the day, called adversity hits you in the face, you can either respond to it in one of two ways. You can either go, oh my gosh, the sky is falling, my life is over, which is actually what a lot of women do. Or you can basically try and minimize the adversity and find a way over it or around it. And that's learned optimism. Okay, ooh, we gotta turn on the video. You get a really big high off of it in the beginning, but then after a while, it kind of fizzles and your brain adapts to it, and you can no longer get high off the same amount of it, and eventually you just burn those receptors in your brain out so that you can't get a high, which leads you straight down into depression. But if you're talking about sex with your girlfriend, here's what happens, okay? In the beginning of the relationship, you get this massive hit of dopamine by being with her. But after a while, you need either more of it or more novelty in order to get the same high off of her. To the point, eventually, at like around 2 to 4 years, what happens is most guys can no longer get a high off of that girl that they're sleeping with. And the only way to renew the sexual interest in the guy is to introduce a new female partner